What's good everyone, my name's Zayas, and today I'm here to review Crows by Hiroshi Takahashi. If I only had to choose one delinquent manga I could read for the rest of my life, I would easily choose this one, even though there's some great other ones out there like GTO, Angel Densetsu, but for me this one takes the cake. It spawned tons of sequels in the same universe, it's created several movies which were actually pretty decent, and on top of that, even other artists have been trying to get in on this and made characters in the same universe as crows. There's stuff like Worst, there's QP, there's all the guidons about crows and Worst, there's the Zenon Gaiden, which is ongoing, probably the best one so far out of all the short stories. And a lot of Delinquent series wouldn't be doing what they're doing today if it weren't for crows. The whole draw for this series is the characters, their sense of loyalty, the honor they have, and the camaraderie that is between them. The characters are super memorable and really well fleshed out. Boya is the protagonist, and he's very different from a lot of protagonists in most Delinquent series. He's outspoken, he's super confident, he's just a little bit idiotic, but at the same time, he's very shy and gets embarrassed super easily. He wears his heart on his sleeve. A lot of people may think of him as moronic, like he's a little bit perverted, but at the same time, he really cares about his friends and he looks after them. We get to see several sides to his character throughout Crows, but if I had to describe him in like one or two words, it would be like very charismatic and super compelling. He really is the perfect protagonist to follow throughout the series as we see him commit one fearless act after another. The other characters in this series certainly aren't slouches either. You have characters like Ryushin, you have Rindaman, you have characters like Bulldog. All of these characters are super easy to love, and they all are very different from one another. And characters in this series just look cool. Like the character design is just on point, they look super badass, they do look like they are delinquents. The artwork is really distinctly late 90s, and the character designs of most characters are really good, and the fights look really great. And that's all I can really ask for in a series like this. Bulldog is more of a natural leader as opposed to Boya, who's more of a lone wolf type figure. But these two get along super well, and their friendship is one of the best ones in the entire series. But even in these funny moments with their friendship, you get to see some pretty deep and insightful stuff. Bulldog shows you that it's not necessarily how strong you are that makes you a great person. It's quite different from being the strongest person in the series and being the greatest person in the series, which Bulldog probably was the greatest person in the series. Rindaman gets the best fights in the series by far. He left us with two super memorable fights that were long and exciting. But on top of that, Rinda is the character that's most similar to Boya. Where Boya is this lone wolf type of character, so is Rindaman. He is ostracized from all his peers due to him being the strongest person in the city, and also because of some nasty rumors which spread due to some unfortunate circumstances between him and his family. And the only person who's really able to see eye to eye with Rindaman is Boya, because Boya is also that strong. The best way I can describe these fights are high tension, back and forth slugfests that end incredibly. I only touched on a couple of these characters here, but there's so many characters throughout all of Crows which have incredible designs, incredible fights, incredible motivations, and character. There are characters from the Parko and the Dangerers. There's characters from the new freshman year like King Joe, Zedden, Nakajima, which all have their own hype behind them. And it's pretty intriguing to see where these characters will go after the story's over. All of these characters have their own place in the story. There's no redundant characters. Each character has something special that they bring to the story. The overarching story behind Crows is rather simple. It's about suzerain, a place for crows. And these are people who don't fit in with the rest of society. These are people who are free to fly wherever they want. And no one has ever managed to successfully unite suzerain and have them working together as one. Some other schools have, but Suzerain never has. And I think there's beauty to this story in how simple it is and how it allows the characters to breathe life into the story themselves. While you're reading this series, you're always guessing and thinking to see who you think is the strongest character or who would win in a fight, which is always interesting to do, and I enjoy that the series leaves you room to do that, as the characters aren't super well defined in their strength levels. Sometimes reading this, you think, was the story really this simple? Because the characters can get deep at times. There's things like characters' goals, characters' motivations, what they're going to do after they finish high school, what they want for the future, and even stuff like dealing with unfortunately timed death. The humor in this series is perfect for me. There's never a moment where it really fails to get me. A lot of these jokes are like really dumb and stupid. Think of like the idiotic, dumb, crude jokes you make when you're with the boys. I personally love the running gag where they threaten to beat someone up because they have a girlfriend. I also really enjoyed the moment where Boya and Bulldog met, and the only reason these two got together was because they both had been rejected by a ton of girls. I also really loved how some of these characters look super old, and the characters are constantly poking fun at these characters like King Joe and Nakajima, because Nakajima really does look like he could be the parent of Boya or something like that. The only real negative I can say about this series is that in the first maybe 10 to 20 chapters, the art really wasn't as polished and refined as it became later on, and although I still enjoyed the style of the art, it just wasn't as good. And Bando wasn't the best first villain, but he was still pretty good, and his reintroduction later on in the series more than made up for a little bit of a lackluster fight at the start. The ending is actually quite good, which is pretty rare to say for most shonen manga. It's sad to depart from all these characters you love so much, and you know that their journey with Suzerain and Hosen and all these schools is over, but it's also happy at the same time, because you know these characters are going to be continuing to live on, continuing to struggle throughout life, and just doing their best every single day. Even after this series is over, you know these characters are living like crows. They're free. If you read through this series, you're certainly going to want to read through the sequels, Worst, which is maybe not as good as this series, but somewhere near the realm of Crows. I'd say this is the only work where you can find characters which are this type of masculine, which is a really good way to be masculine. I'm feeling a very, very strong 9. Please like the video, comment on what you thought about this series, or if there's any other series you want me to review, and please subscribe. Thank you everyone. I'll see you in the next one.